Welcome to the Bill Kelly Podcast, critical discussions in critical times. Here's your host, Bill Kelly.
Welcome to another edition of the Bill Kelly Podcast, critical discussions in these critical times. I'm your host, Bill Kelly. Well, a room full of generals who were summoned to Washington just a couple of days ago finally showed the American people how they should be reacting to the mindless bluster of Donald Trump. Just to give you the background on this, of course, he summoned, through his minions, of course, in the White House, generals from all over the world to come to Washington, to Quantico, because the president, who is the commander-in-chief, of course, was going to address all of these. Now, this is, in context here, this is while he's ordering National Guard and threatening to put the Army onto the streets of American cities. It's already happened, of course, in Washington and in Los Angeles, and it's happening in other cities now, Chicago and other places like this. It's not just ICE agents now. It's actually troops that are there. And by the way, just to put that in perspective, that's against the Constitution. The American troops are not supposed to be patrolling. They are not supposed to be doing police duties. It's against the Constitution for them to even be in cities doing their duties. That's not their duty at all. Trump has ordered them there, though, and we'll talk more about that in just a couple of seconds. But the way in which the generals responded when Trump finally arose to his podium and did what Trump always does, was ramble on, mindlessly, of course. As one observer stated, the generals sat in perfect silence, faces locked in a kind of grim stillness that comes from years of watching idiots talk and choosing not to react. Trump, of course, could not handle this. He says, "I've never walked into a room so silent before." His voice was trembling somewhat between wounded pride and panic because they weren't cheering. They weren't holding up "Make America Great Again" signs. They weren't looking with MAGA hats. They weren't doing any of that stuff. The generals sat there in silence. They did not applaud. They did not cheer. They did nothing. To the point where Trump, actually getting so flustered, said, "Okay, if you want to applaud, you applaud." He's begging them to applaud. And they did not comply. That's interesting to see the way that they did this. And you got to wonder what their mindset is. By the way, a couple of other observations. If you watch the coverage or if you've seen some of the stuff on YouTube or some of the other news sites right now, one of the things that somebody else pointed out to me, a very few female generals. Well, that's because he's systematically firing them. The ones in senior positions, of course, at the Pentagon have already been turfed, and it's happening right through the system right now because that's woke, apparently, according to Trump. There shouldn't be females in the military, especially in positions of responsibility, senior officers. That just should not be happening. That's part of this idiotic mindset that Trump is spewing, of course, in Washington. And the MAGA people just eat this up. I mean, they'll eat anything up that he says. The military is a different situation. And I've always, as I've said in other podcasts, been just amazed by the fact that veterans, people who have put their lives on the line and saw brothers and sisters and good friends lose their lives or lose limbs in armed conflict, have the president, who's the commander-in-chief, basically, and he's done it on more than one occasion, say that people put on the uniform for their country are suckers and losers. That's suckers and losers. I don't know that these people that did that, to call themselves veterans, that are still wearing these MAGA hats and supporting him, do they not realize he's talking about them? He's telling them, you're a sucker, you're a loser, because you were in the American military, because you served in Iraq, or you served in Afghanistan, or wherever else you were stationed. He calls you a loser. This is the guy, of course, that, would not even go into the military, draft dodger, extraordinaire, and with no legitimate reason, born Spurs or not. We already know, of course, that it's been well documented that his father paid somebody off, a doctor off, to write this ridiculous note that he couldn't go into the military. The guy's, he's exactly what he's, again, portraying everyone else to be. He's the sucker and the loser, but that is amazing. Maybe the generals get it. Maybe that was one of the reasons why they sat there in stone silence and said nothing and did absolutely nothing. And his little puppet guy, Pete Hegseth, was there too. The alcoholic guy who's in charge of, he's the Department of War now is what they call it. Again, an idiotic idea. But Trump talked to these generals basically about deploying their soldiers into American cities, on the streets of American cities. Coincidentally, they're all Democratic cities run by Democratic mayors, which tells you this is very much political based. It has nothing to do with violence or crime in the streets or anything else. It's intimidation that Trump likes to use. And now he's going to use the military, which, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, is totally contrary to the Constitution. And the silence, it was deafening, really. And it's interesting because he's talked about this before, that I'll fire generals that don't agree with me, fire them on the spot. And I'm sure that was not lost on an awful lot of other people that were sitting in that room that particular day, too. But there's an element to this that I find interesting about the way that they responded. And again, a couple of people who were there covering this thing were, I think, surprised by the unison of all these generals sitting here in one room listening to this guy and not reacting at all to what he was saying. Just stone silence, staring straight ahead. And as one observer wrote, what happened at Quantico wasn't just awkward, it was diagnostic. Trump's presidency is a hollow shell propped up by applause. And when that applause disappears, so does he. And you saw that if you saw any coverage of this. He was shaken. He was bothered by this because he feasts on. He needs that applause. He needs that adulation from his MAGA people. You see that at the rallies. He wants them to wave the flags and wear the red hats. And when he says, throw that bum out of there, they respond and they yell and they cheer and all these idiotic things that he says and they cheer. It's like that's the oxygen for his fire. And when that's not there, you could just see he was a deflated man. If that happened more often, maybe American people would get a better idea of just what kind of a president they've got. But my question is this, good for this generals to react the way that they did to Trump and not show this guy any respect and certainly not any support for what he's doing, because what he's doing is absolutely wrong. And they know that it's wrong. You don't get to that stage, of course, in the military without a great deal of experience and expertise. And they know what their role is. And they know that what the president is asking military to do right now, to basically fight his political wars in the streets of American cities, is dead wrong. So here's my question. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Because inevitably, it's already happened in some quarters. Inevitably, he's going to order, as the big cheese patty here, as the commander-in-chief, he's going to order U.S. troops into American cities to patrol and maybe even, let's face it, they're going to be armed. If there's conflict, what do? Do they fire tear gas? Do they use rubber bullets? Do they use real ammunition? It's not a far-fetched idea at all. And if the generals know this to be wrong, what are they going to do when that order comes down? And this begs the question that we've talked about before. Each and every person in that room, by the way, including the president, swore an oath of allegiance to the Constitution of the United States. Those generals have never sworn, and hopefully never will, swear an allegiance to the president. That's not what that American republic is supposed to be. It's to the Constitution. And the Constitution absolutely forbids them doing what Trump is going to ask them to do, and has already asked them to do. So, do they defy the order? Do they defy their commander-in-chief because they know that they're on the right and he's wrong? Or do they simply comply because, well, that's the way things are always done? How they answer that question and what's going to happen as a result is going to go a long way towards determining just what kind of a country America is and what kind of people they are. And on this side of the border, we'll be watching and hoping they make the right choice. That's it. That's the moral of the story this time around, and hopefully it's going to be, I don't know about a happy ending, but at least an ending that's something that we can live with and that Americans can be proud of. Thanks, as always, for watching, and thank you for watching on YouTube. Hit the notification bell, as always. Thank you for your support. The subscriptions keep coming in. We really need that support to continue to do the great work that we're doing. Thanks to Madeline Kelly for the great work producing the show today. Till next time, I'm Bill Kelly. Stay in touch and stay informed.
Bill Kelly Podcast brought to you by Wizen's Law, personal injury lawyers. Listen, you didn't choose to get injured, but you can choose the right lawyer. Wizen's Law, 905-522-1102 or wizenslaw.com.